Here we are, and we are on our, what topic are we on now? I think it's 5.
Yeah, Apologetics.
Yeah, 5, and we're in our second session of that, and we're talking about the apologetics for a local church sports ministry. And apologetics, again, doesn't mean that we're sorry about it.
Definitely not.
Apology,
That's right.
But apologetics is a technical term that helps people understand that what's the rationale for? What can we really do to think about this and recognize the positives of it? And in the first session, we talked a lot about the biblical side of it. And on this particular session, we're going to be talking more about the pragmatic side, because if it doesn't work, even though it's theologically sound, then we have to start thinking about strategically, is this what we want? And so we've got some very significant, we think, pragmatic points to communicate today. If you're just joining us, Jonathan Detweiler with Uttermost Sports is here. I'm Greg Linville with CSRM, and you're in the middle of a series of training videos to help people learn how to do local sports ministry around the world, local church sports ministry around the world. And Jonathan brings decades worth of experience. I know you don't look that old, but you've been doing it for a while, and he's been in 70 countries doing it. Right. So, Jonathan, we're going to pull up a screen here that we hope people will be able to see shortly, and start us off on these pragmatic considerations.
Yeah, well, I want to just review or just go over some practical opportunities that sports ministry allows us to accomplish within the context of a local church. And I don't know what your background is out there. Maybe you have a sports ministry already. Maybe you're thinking about sports ministry. Maybe you're an athlete who's asking how you can get involved in a local church. So I want you to consider, though, the broad picture of what sports and sports ministry can do to enhance the vision, the calling, the opportunity that you have as a part of God's universal church to serve Him through the tool of sport. So I'll run through these pretty quickly. It contributes to the church's mission. Now we know the church should be about reaching people and seeing lives restored, and the sports ministry is a great bridge that allows people to enter in to people's lives. It contributes to body life, and often that's one of the things that we're good at in the church. We like to get together with other believers around food, generally. And if you're
works for me.
That's right. But if you're a sports person, you like to get together, hopefully with other believers around a game, or it can be golf or basketball or whatever. So when you get together, though, that provides an opportunity for fellowship. And through fellowship, you share your life, you encourage one another, depending on whatever level of relationship you're in and committed to, then it provides an opportunity for you to really connect with other believers. It's a gateway for evangelism, and we're going to be talking more about that specifically, but it really allows you to engage in conversations with people at a level that can go into spiritual things. And I know people are very uncomfortable often sharing their faith. Well, most people aren't uncomfortable playing basketball, or if you're a soccer player or a basketball player or whatever, you love to play sports. So now we're just saying, hey, think about your way of being intentional with that sporting talent and gifts that God has given you, and in the life of the church. If people are prepared or given the expectation that, hey, this is a tool you can use to build relationships, it becomes a gateway for evangelism. It's an entry level for service. What do we mean by that? Well, when people are interested in knowing more about God, you can invite them to a Bible study, or you can invite them to your church, or you can invite them for something that you're doing in your church, whether it's in the church or out of the church. But when somebody starts to become interested, often there's not a lot of ways for them to get involved, because, well, maybe they're not comfortable praying in front of a group, or maybe they're not uncomfortable, they're uncomfortable leading a Bible study, or doing a lot of these things that I think we expect as a Christian from other believers. And so an entry level would be, if you have a sports ministry, then they can set up the field, or they can help with giving water to the players, or they can sweep the gym floor. I don't know. There's all kinds of things that are entry level kind of roles that they can play that allow them then to become a part of what's going on and to fit in, so they can start to become a part of that community. Working together, one of the greatest things that builds community is to have a cause or a purpose for what you're doing. And so as you're organizing sports and recreation, it brings people together because you have to work side by side in order to build something, to do something. It becomes a great opportunity for leadership. We like to say sports is a microcosm of life. And there are a lot of different levels of leadership within the sports world. You have the overall kind of league director person or event manager. Then you have the coaches or the people who are maybe doing the sport. But then you've also got all kinds of helpers that are different leadership positions. So it gives people a practical opportunity to be put in a position of leadership, which allows them to prove whether they're faithful, available, or teachable. And then from there they can go to another greater leadership position, or you see, oh man, that's pretty much about all they can handle, so you kind of keep them there for a while, but to help them grow. I think it goes without saying that it gives opportunities for people to serve. And in sports,
and serve in capacities that they're familiar with and feel comfortable with. Right,
and we miss that sometimes because sports is all about competition, and you want to win, and you want to do your best, and you want to perform. But behind that are lots of opportunities that give people the chance to serve others. So consider that as well. And stewardship, God has given each one of us talents and abilities that He wants us to use, and so we're allowing people to have the freedom to use those talents and abilities and just to be good stewards of what God has given them. It's a built-in leadership development kind of opportunity, and we shared a little bit about that. But if you have, within CSRM, I think there's a great example. We've been talking about Chris Levette, and he was a young man who became a part of the basketball program
at a local church.
Right, he played basketball, and then you can share what he went from there.
Chris was a young man. Actually, he was a young child. Mm-hmm. Started off probably in first grade or so in a local church sports ministry, and went through that whole program all the way through his high school.
Right,
but he actually then. The church helped him not only develop a foundation for which a faith seed could grow, but also he got good at the sport. Mm-hmm. And so at that, he parlayed that into high school team, all-state selection in that state, a little bit of college ball till he hurt his back. It took him right to where he needed to go.
But the leadership development part is that now he's the vice president of your board.
That's exactly right.
And which is amazing to see how God can take a young boy and mold him and shape him through the influence of people and the relationships. But it's all because of these practical opportunities that were provided within the local church sport ministry.
And he's a leader in the business community.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So maybe you have examples as well, but definitely if it's working, you'll see this develop. You'll see people develop, and they'll become followers of Christ and leaders for Christ. And then the last one, it serves or assists other ministries in the local church. Sometimes the pastor will go, I don't have any. Where are all my people today? Because when you don't have congregation members, when you don't have the body coming together, then the other parts of the church, they can't function. But when you have people being drawn in through sports and recreation, then guess what? You have more people for the choir. You have more giving because people are supporting the church. You have more workers for your children's ministry. And so it really is an opportunity not only to serve other parts of the church, but also to assist, because sports can be incorporated into the children's ministry or into the adults ministry or some of these other things.
Even to the best, we need to synchronize those.
Right.
But that's a whole nother session.
Sure. And so think about those practical opportunities, and then just some things to think about in relation to sports ministry in the whole picture. It's a tool for the church in evangelistic discipleship. It can be used inside other evangelism strategies. It takes away barriers for the gospel. It builds bridges between cultures. It lowers the obstacles to attend evangelism events, activities. It keeps people involved and engaged. It prevents backsliding. A lot of people step out of the church because they don't feel like they've connected or they have a community, and so that's exactly what we're talking about. It makes use of both physical as well as spiritual gifts and talents. It creates easy and natural parables to explain the gospel, so it's a creative way for sharing the gospel, and it promotes active and applied faith and Christianity.
And that one is often overlooked.
It is.
Because that's where we move into that disciple-making part of this evangelistic disciple-making continuum. And Jonathan, if people are in the local church right now, and they're not starting to jump up and down because of what you
they must not be alive.
And I think that this is going to be one of the videos that some of our local church sports ministers are probably going to want to have their senior pastor or their elder board or whatever it is, the leadership of their church, and they're going to say, look at all this. Let's go one step further. Because the church of today has typically two missing groups. And you know what? What links them? Hormones. They have hormone problems. Anybody that's been around youth knows that those hormones are kicking in and they're bouncing off the walls, and that's why they build the youth rooms with indestructible brick and block walls. Because these youth want to get up and move and jump around. And men of all ages. These are the two missing groups in the typical traditional church. And men have a hormone that is really good when it helps us go plow the back 40. But now that we sit around in front of these computer terminals and these cameras that are videoing, and we sit all day, men don't like to sit typically. And that's all the church offers. I'm going to take it one step further. And I will caution some people. This may be offensive to some people. But I will tell you that when I say this to groups of mixed gender, those that are female are saying, you didn't say it strong enough. And so unless that's changed between the last time I did that a couple weeks ago till now, our churches are basically feminine in their orientation. Now, what do I mean by that? It's all verbal skills. Preaching, teaching, fellowshipping, reading the Bible, singing. All of these things are feminine in terms of that it's verbal skills. Most men don't feel that they could do what we're doing, to talk for 20 minutes here. They feel very uncomfortable with that. And in the traditional, typical churches, this is why they said, let me drive the van to pick people up. Let me be the one to take the offering. Let me be the one to get up and move halfway through the service, because I just need to get up and move. And this is sometimes difficult for us to understand and comprehend. But unless we understand it, we're going to never meet these people. We're never going to reach them.
Yeah, no matter where I go in the world, I meet pastors, and this is what they say. They said, I'm having a hard time connecting with my youth, connecting with the men. I don't know how to do it. We can't bring them into the body of the church. How do we do it?
Now, lest people think that we're advocating that we should break out into a basketball game halfway through a Lord's Day morning worship service.
Well, some people would like that.
we need to say, no, there's appropriate times for all of these things.
Right.
But most churches only do the one and never do the other. And that's why we have troubles attracting these people. There's much more along these lines that we really don't have time to go into. The second thing we need to talk about is relevance. And there are people sitting in your churches, you folks that are sitting out there, your sports ministers, and people are just, they're on the finance committee. Let me run you through a couple of scenarios. Tithing, okay, we're asking everybody in the church to give 10th. Then you come back to them and say, okay, for the man, you've got one pants pocket pulled completely out with tithing. Now we're going to do a building fund, or we're going to do some other, foundational kind of thing. Maybe it's a mission, or so now we're going to ask you to give sacrificially above 10%. Not that 10% isn't sacrificial sometimes.
Right.
And now you're going to pull the other pocket out. And now you want me to come back and give you more money, and you're going to say, I have 2 pockets. You've got into both of them. They're empty. But you know what? That business person that's out there, they have advertising dollars. And in your sports facility, they can advertise their business. They can sponsor teams that go out and play. There are other ways that they can actually give of what they have. And there's also additional revenues, because what happens on a dusty, dirty, hot softball complex or soccer field?
People are going to buy drinks.
Here we go. We've got snack bars, we've got grills, we've got all those kinds of things. My point is, and we don't have time to break down each and every specific thing, but there is an amazing way that sports ministry can help your church raise money. I'm just going to end it with this.
But if you do it well, then people pay to play in your league.
Exactly.
As well. So
people pay you to evangelize them.
Right.
And that's exactly, you anticipated exactly where I'm going. Think about this. How many people would pay to come to a Sunday school, or pay to be part of an adult Bible fellowship, or whatever you say? They kind of say, okay, I'll give something in the offering, I'll kick in a few bucks. They accept that, but to go to any of these other things, I'm not paying to do that. But they pay to go to sports ministry things. People, we have a lot here to offer. And so there's some real good, solid pragmatics. If you'd like more information about this, we're available. We've got even more than what we can give you here in the 20 minutes. So we're going to wrap this one up, Jonathan, but we're going to say that the next topic that we go into starts really putting down nuts and bolts of this whole thing that we've been kind of building the platform for, or the foundation for, what we're calling evangelistic disciple making. Where are we going with that?
Yeah, well, we've given you lots of principles. I think now we're ready to get practical. This is kind of stepping in from the theological and the philosophical now more into the methodological. And so I'm excited to share these principles that I actually have learned in my own experience. And I think if you will take in the next sessions, it'll save you frustration from years of struggle that I had to go through.
So we're going to get into a win, build, and sin kind of methodology. And the last thing I'd like to say before we close this one off is that a lot of what we just talked about comes out of your experience, my experience. I want to give credit to Roger Oswald,
right,
who both of us learned from. And Roger is to be credited with a lot of that we've said in this topic of both the biblical and the pragmatic. All right, we're going to be back with the next topic. Hope you'll join us.
Yes, see you.